option. The club holds an option for 2020 that started out as $15 million but had built-in escalators. So based on performance, it's a $20 million club option.
And so that means that he met those. Oh my gosh. So yeah.
And the buyout will be about $2 million. So they're going to pay him $2 million to not exercise the option.
So Anderson, Andres, Yusei Kikuchi, James Paxton, Kyle Seager, Joe Smith. That is your free agents from the Mariners this year. James Paxton was hurt all year, so that's nothing. Yusei, see,
I mean, if he's cheap.
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't take him on either of the options.
Yeah.
But if you want to bring him back and be like, hey, we'll take a flyer on you 1 year. Yeah. Maybe we'll make you a reliever.
He was an all-star.
Yeah, and he was an all-star. And because that's the other thing. All-stars are first half, they're first half all-stars. Yeah. That's the other weird thing about Major League All-Stars is they're first half all-stars. Joe Smith, random old reliever. Who knows if he'll even play again? From everything you hear, he's a great guy.
Did you give up on the phrase "for all intents and purposes"?
Yeah, I was gonna say it, and I was just like, I don't actually have any intents or purposes with what I'm saying there. Yeah, I wasn't using the right phrase.
Okay.
So Kyle Seager's really your only main free agent, but this isn't the year when you have all of the crazy awesome infield free agents. This is not the year to go find somebody, and that's the other thing. Is if he was holding up back another young player from, if you were we really want to see what this next guy can do, and Kyle Seager's just been blocking him. They don't have another third baseman. Mm-hmm. What, you got Toro?
Well, Toro's playing second.
Exactly.
So is there somebody else that Toro's blocking by playing second?
You got Ty France? Well, he's playing first.
Yeah.
Well, you got Evan White.
He's been bad.
Who's been bad. So exactly. And then you've been playing a catcher, one of 3 catchers at DH. So let's say Evan White's amazing and he can play first and Toro can play second. You could have Ty France DH. Mm-hmm. There's no blocking situation here. That's the other thing that it's just so frustrating. And I've heard a bunch of people bring up Marcus Semien, who would be great. Yeah, he's a really good player right now for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Didn't Semien hit 35 home runs?
But Semien had a monster year, and he's younger. And if you think that you're going to get Semien for less money, you're crazy. He had 45 dingers this year.
You'll probably have to sign him for the kind of deal that you're afraid that would be the type of deal that's crippling to a franchise.
Exactly.
You're going to pay him a buttload of money on the front end and then probably be bad. And you're hoping he stays really good. And it'll probably be bad on the back end of the contract.
Exactly. And he's no spring chicken either. He's 31. So, yeah, you're going to have to.
Oh, I thought he was younger than that.
I thought he was younger than that, too. But he's not. He's 31 years old. And you'd be paying him at his height, the height of what he's worth. No. I don't.
For a single year.
Yeah. I don't Well, you wouldn't be paying him for a single year.
He's going to get a multi-year
You'd be
deal.
paying Semien.
I got you.
You'd be paying Semien for. You would be screwed by the end of that deal. But this is a 1-year option for Kyle Seager. I don't understand it. And then the next year is when all the crazy shortstops like Corey Seager and.
That'd be brutal.
I mean, all of that class. I think Trevor Story. There's a bunch of free agents at the end of next season. Lindor, maybe. There's just a ton. So I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Maybe.
The only thing I can think of, Justin, is that him and Jerry DiPoto hate each other. Because it sure didn't seem like him and Scott Service hated each other tonight.
No, it did not. Well, don't you think Scott Service is the guy... When Jerry DiPoto does the two-faced liar thing, Scott Service gets to be the guy that comes up and he's like, I'm sorry, guys, that guy's crazy. And he gets to be the good guy. It's when one parent gets upset and yells at a kid and then the other parent comforts them. That's what it is. But Scott Service is the comforting parent every time.
Yeah, that checks out.
So we are strongly hoping that the Mariners will come to their senses. You know what? And I'll just have this disclaimer. Has Jerry DiPoto tampered? We already know he's capable of being a liar and a cheat. has he already tampered, and does he already know? Like, oh, I got this trade locked and loaded, or oh, I've got this guy that I'm going to bring in. Is it possible? Or is he just hoping that that's going to... Or did they do this today knowing that it could be Kyle Seager's last year, and they wanted to make sure that he's not going out without having some kind of ovation?
I love your sunny optimism.
It's not optimism.
I'll hold on to that, though. I'm just going to keep believing in that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you're not just losing someone who hits a bunch of bombs and has a bunch of RBIs. Like, he is a Gold Glove third baseman.
Oh, and he made a play.
Amazing.
He made a play. Was it today's game or yesterday's game? He made a sick play over there on the line.
Yeah.
To get an out that I don't think most third basemen get.
No. And that's the thing. Like, Toro and France churned himself into a Gold Glove first baseman. But he is known to be a bad defensive second baseman and third baseman, showing what it takes to play first.
He can hit
anyway, but he can hit. And that's the thing is you're going to miss that so much. Yeah. Like, how many just ridiculous... Andrew, can you look up how many runs Kyle Seager has saved this year? Or Justin?
Is that a stat?
Yeah, defensive runs saved.
Okay.
Come on, clickety-clack, clickety-clack. Anyway, I just think that's going to be so brutal to lose
59.
him. 59! That's more than their run differential this year. Their negative run differential. That's crazy.
Yeah. Bring back Kyle Seager, please.
Yeah,
but anyway, then the other thing I think is really interesting is this is an off season where I want to say Haniger has one more year of arbitration.
I think so.
So this is a year where an off season where the Mariners are going to have to decide, and God, please don't screw this up. Mitch Haniger was amazing this year. Your best player, the centerpiece of your offense, and I mean when he hit 39 bombs and drove in over 100 runs and batted it in the 250s. Like, please bring it back. Don't disappoint us.
Exactly.
We've suffered enough.
We've suffered enough.
I had just for perspective on all of this, because literally my children have never seen the Mariners make the playoffs, and
You've never even shown them the '95 season.
one of my son's friends, we usually pick him up for school in the mornings, and he got into the car on Friday, and he looked at me and he said, "This is going to be the best weekend of my life."
Oh man!
And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because the Mariners are going to sweep the Angels and they're going to make it to the playoffs for the first time in my life."
Oh, buddy.
I'm sorry, Skyler.
Skyler.
Didn't work out. Yeah. So sad.
I'm sorry, Skyler. That's a bummer.
At least it's reasonable to expect the Mariners to be better next year. That's
true.
The thing that I keep on reminding myself. Like, every other time over the last 20 years that we've been watching the Mariners try to get into the playoffs in the last few days of the season, when they didn't make it, it was like, oh, great. Well, that was their chance, because they're not going to be better next year.
I like the way that you phrased that it's reasonable to expect it.
Yeah.
Because we've learned time and time again that nothing's guaranteed in sports. And go
true.
back to, do you guys remember the year when Steven Strasburg was young and coming off of Tommy John surgery, and the Nationals were really good, and they were on track to be like the best team in the National League, and they decided, no, Strasburg has hit his innings limit. We're going to shut him down for the year.
Yeah.
And everybody was going, yeah, that's okay, because man, look at the young core on this team, and they're going to be really good in the future, and everything's going to be okay. And then they immediately after that, they got knocked out of the playoffs. And then immediately after that season was over, they took a sharp downward turn.
Yeah.
Like, nothing is guaranteed. So that's why this end of this season felt so important, because you're that close.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is reasonable to expect that they'll be better next year.
Yeah, I mean, and there
or
was
good,
that,
at least.
There was that one season where they were coming off a pretty darn good year with Cano, Cruz, and Seager.
Yeah.
And we were like, all right, these guys are in the prime. Just put another couple pieces, and we were like, okay, we almost made the playoffs this year. Next year will be good. And then the next year was like one of the worst years.
Yeah.
But to what Andrew's saying, we don't even have people in their prime yet, really, except for Haniger and Seager. Seager's probably a little past it, maybe, but this year showed it. I don't know.
Numerically, this was his best year, so.
Not batting average wise,
Oh, okay.
but RBI and home runs.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So that's it. I said last week, hey, you know what we'll be able to probably do is next Sunday we'll be able to do our postmortem on the Mariners season. They'll have missed the playoffs by a couple of games, and we'll get to talk about what next year is like. I didn't anticipate it ending this emotionally.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think while your prediction, which I think we all kind of, like, after you said it, we were all like, yeah, that sounds about right. You nailed the prediction, and I don't think I was quite ready for the way we got there.
Neither was I.
So I'm not ready to do my postmortem on the Mariners yet. And maybe we can have one more week next week where we bring back some Mariners talk and start to project what next year might be like.
Yeah, maybe.
But for now, let's move on to the Seahawks.
Yes.
Because
So there was a Seahawks game today.
Apparently.
they flipped the script. They kept showing graphics during the game of the Seahawks offense, number 1 in the NFL in the first half, worst in the NFL in the second half by yards and by scoring.
Yeah.
And it's what we knew. It reinforced what we already know, which is that every week the offense has come out looking great and then totally become non-existent in the second half. And they did the opposite of that. The only touchdown that they scored in the first half was on their final drive of the first half, where Russ drove them 80 yards and then ended it with a touchdown. I actually don't even remember who scored that touchdown. Was it a pass to DK?
Yeah, that was the one where DK caught it and then dove, and the
Yeah.
tip of the nose of the ball was.
Has there ever been a closer tip of the nose over the goal line
Right?
touchdown?
I don't know, because
That was
still
the
don't-
definition of just the tip. I mean, wow.
I don't even know if the tip made it.
Did the
because
end zone
I think
even feel it?
I think his hand. I don't think the end zone felt it. I mean, if it did, it just felt his hand.
Anyway, so they got that drive right at the end of the second quarter, and then they came out in the second half, and the offense looked totally different. I mean, Russ only ended up throwing for 149 yards. He did rush for 26 and a touchdown. And one thing that I really appreciated about the portions of the game that I was watching on mute is I was looking up in the second half, and they were still running the ball.
Yes.
They struggled to get the running game going. I mean, they only averaged 3.8 yards per carry, which is okay, but it's a little below league average. Chris Carson was really struggling. He only averaged 2.3 yards a
Man,
carry.
they had him shut down.
Yeah, they really did. But they were still recognizing towards the end of the game the importance of having the run game to help set up the pass and like establishing that you're still going to run the ball in the second half. So that was to me apparent that was one of the adjustments that they made, was that we're not going to abandon the running game in the second half.
Absolutely. I don't know. It's a bit hard for me to see that they only had 2 sacks still. I mean, that's a bit of a bummer, but I felt like the Seahawks defense played a lot better.
But they did have 6 quarterback hits, which
Fields was shifty. Like,
It's
there
true.
were a lot of plays where it broke down,
Not
and
Fields.
he.
You mean Trey Lance?
Trey
Lance. I'm sorry. Yeah. What?
I
Who
mean-
were they playing again?
They're playing the Bears. It's Justin Fields.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, Lance was really shifty. When in that second half, I feel like there were a bunch of plays where he was running around and making guys miss that were pressuring well anyway. It seemed like.
I think another bit of good news that comes out of it is they did snap out of the cornerback situation. They didn't start Trey Flowers. They started Sidney Jones.
Thank you.
It wasn't publicly known. It was kind of publicly suspected.
Yeah.
And Sidney Jones said he knew early in the week, but they hadn't announced it. And then he ended up starting. And although Pete Carroll did say that the wide open Deebo Samuel touchdown was Sidney Jones's fault.
Okay.
Pete Carroll did say that he felt much better about the way the secondary played in this game as opposed to previous games.
Yeah, and we were thinking it was probably Sidney Jones's fault,
Yeah.
but there's also some speculation that it could have been Marquise Blair's fault.
Well, the media asked Quandre Diggs, hey, that coverage mishap, was that Sidney Jones's fault? And Quandre Diggs said, what do you think I am, a snitch? And then later
That's awesome.
Later they
Yes.
asked Pete Carroll about it, and he confirmed that it was actually Sidney Jones who messed that up.
That's brilliant.
Because that makes sense. Because you saw Jones cut in on the receiver.
Yeah.
The receiver ran an in route, and Jones crashed on it hard. And Deebo Samuel ran down the line, and Adams turned around and was like, "That guy's out there."
And if anybody on the 49ers was going to have a great game, I was glad it was Deebo Samuel because that was really good for my fantasy team. And I had this experience watching the game on mute in portions during commercials of the Mariners game where I was like, I have Russ. But my opponent, Daniel Hargrove, has Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So I kept going, oh, Russ completed a pass. Oh, it was to Lockett. Oh, Russ completed a touchdown pass. Oh, dang it, it was to Metcalf. So at the end of the game when Russ ran for one and then threw one to Freddie Swain, that was really good for me. And then the Deebo Samuel explosion in the second half was also really good for me. And now I'm going to crush your butt.
My butt is getting crushed.
It would have sounded better if I hadn't censored myself, but I want to keep it PG here today.
Well, I mean, yeah, you are going to beat me by like 30 points.
Yeah.
But that's not much that's not saying much because I've been pretty terrible. Although Tyreek Hill had 38 points for me and Prescott had 34, and I'm still getting my butt crushed.
I think that
I don't like having my butt
that's
crushed.
a really weird phrasing chosen by me.
Sidney Jones had 7 tackles, 5 solos, but he also had a pass defense. And I don't know, I just felt more comfortable with him out there. And it just seemed like maybe it was because this is the other thing. Is it just me or did Trey Lance suck? Like, I'm looking at his stats and on Bleacher Report, it has the little emojis after their stat line and it has a fire emoji after Trey Lance's. He went 9 for 18 for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I know he didn't get sacked, or I know he didn't have an interception.
He tried.
But
well, actually, I wasn't.
He had a 50% pass completion.
There was
like percentage.
There was one. I think it was in the second half, so it would have been him where the Seattle DB, it was Neal, I think. I thought he was going to catch it, and then he didn't get it. But
Yeah. Well, there's a couple.
so it wasn't from one of trying.
There was also a time where he threw a slant so far behind the receiver that it was actually behind Sidney Jones too. Like that's tough to do.
That's strategic, Daniel.
Anyway, good to see the Seahawks back on top. But
So is everything better?
I don't think everything's better.
I would like to see the
I'd like to see
Seahawks
them play
offense
4
look
full
good
quarters.
Same.
I know. Is that too much to ask? Like one game where you play 4 quarters of good football?
Even just like you could take it down a notch from great to good.
Well, you can't win
Like, just
in
be-
the first 3 quarters.
You don't even have to be great for 4 quarters. Just be good for 4 quarters.
Yeah.
I'd settle for pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know, like maybe 1 touchdown per quarter and 2 in one of them. I'd be okay.
Yeah.
Be 35 points.
So you'd be looking for some first downs.
First downs generally,
in
yeah.
multiple
Yeah,
halves.
that was one stat that I looked up and saw. The Seahawks' first 5 drives resulted in 3 and outs in a row, and their 6th drive was a touchdown drive.
Yeah.
But so in the first half,
And they had like negative 12 yards through their 5 3 and outs. That's
ridiculous.
Of total offense.
It's terrible.
And they couldn't protect. Like Russ was taking sacks, and a couple of them I was like, Russ, throw the ball. And then other ones I was like, really, come on. Like, what's he supposed to do?
Seriously. All right, you got any more on the Seahawks?
No.
Let's take a commercial
We should
break.
be happier about it.
I'm so dejected about the Mariners.
Okay. Do you have a legal situation and need someone on your side? Let the law office of Jeffrey A. Damashevitz be your advocate. If you've been the victim of medical malpractice, suffered a personal injury, or need representation with real estate law, small business law, or estate planning, let Jeff Damashevitz put his 29 years of experience to work for you. Call Jeff Damashevitz today at 360-612-3991 or visit damashevitzlaw.com. That's DAMASIEWICZLAW.com.
Thank you to our sponsors, the Law Office of Jeffrey A. Damashevitz and Oli Penn Real Estate, the sponsors of our show. We appreciate that for your sponsorship and sponsoring our show.
Sponsors. Oh, Daniel, you forgot to mention sponsors.
Sponsors.
Yeah.
Now we are going to move on. Where are we? We are down to the athlete of the week.
Speaking of
sponsors, the Ole Penn Real Estate Athlete of the Week is yet another Montesano Bulldog. It is Montesano midfielder Mikayla Stanfield, who had a hat trick in their win over Eatonville.
Someone.
That's who it was. It was over Eatonville.
Someone and probably.
And they also had a big win over Tenino earlier in the week, but in their 5-0 win over Eatonville, Mikayla Stanfield had a hat trick. So, Mikayla is our Ole Penn Real Estate Athlete of the Week.
Mikayla Stanfield, I believe, only a sophomore? She's pretty young.
I don't know.
I
She's
think
a Stanfield, so I get confused.
Yeah,
like,
I
there's
think-
been a lot of them, and they're all really, really good.
Well, yeah, and, hat trick and
Sorry,
Stanfield kind of go together because her older sister Samantha had some hat tricks in her day.
Yeah, and isn't there a Jessica, too?
Jessica, she was, I don't remember much of Jessica from soccer, but she was an amazing softball player.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a senior last year and hit a bunch of bombs. For the softball team.
Yeah.
So, there's been several very athletic Stanfield girls, and Mikayla is the next in line, and she's an excellent softball player, and she's a good basketball player too. So I'm assuming she plays volleyball. Those ones kind of tend to go together.
Well, she can't play volleyball and soccer at the same time.
Oh yeah, you're right. What's the other? What would be the sport in the other season? This isn't worth
You said it, basketball and fast pitch.
fast pitch.
She's
okay.
playing soccer right now.
I had her playing a fourth sport.
Yeah.
Two at the same time.
she's probably good enough
She's
to.
a Stanfield, so I think she could do it.
No, she is our athlete of the week because she's really good at soccer and scored lots of goals.
Congratulations, Mikayla, for being the fourth consecutive Montesano Bulldog to be the Ole Penn Real Estate Athlete of the Week.
Yes, well done. And now let's get into our kind of abbreviated local sports roundup. And at the end of this, I don't know, we saw one of the best high school games that I've seen in a long time.
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, we're going to talk about it. Nope, that's not the right one. There we go. All right, in high school football, Elma, they were able to find a game on Saturday against Mount Baker. They hosted Mount Baker at Davis Field, but they fell 28-13 to the Mountaineers.
Something.
Yeah.
The Montesano Bulldogs lost to Napavine 56-47.
Aberdeen took down Black Hills 20-7. Jeremy Sawyer carried the ball 28 times for 151 yards. And Cale Goings had a big game. He scored 2 touchdowns on the ground and threw one to Jake Bowers. We said it was going to be a kind of a quick roundup. Also, we mentioned Montesano's girls soccer team. They got 2 wins, one over Tenino, which that's a big win. They got that one 1-0. Let's see. I think I saw that Aberdeen swim team. They got a good win in a meet. Maybe that was against Black Hills. Not positive. Anyway, some other good things happened around the harbor.
We sound really well
sports.
informed.
Yeah. I'm telling you, today is just one of them days, man.
So the problem is,
Daniel hasn't been able to pay attention to anything but Mariners for like at least 4 days.
well, for
Yeah.
3 days for me in a row, it was like horrible sports day, great sports day, and then I thought today was going to be a horrible sports day, and the Seahawks kind of saved it.
Yeah.
By coming back and playing well in the second half.
The Red Sox, at least for me, kind of saved that as well. It's disappointing, but it's far less pit of my stomach, just angst.
because the Red Sox win.
The Red Sox win. The Mariners, they didn't get it done, but it didn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, if they had won, they still would have missed the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, let's get into Friday,
We could.
which was one of those horrible sports days for you because the Mariners lost.
Yeah.
And also, it was a great sports day for me, not because of the outcome, but do you know how long it's been since I've covered a football game that hasn't gone to a running clock?
No.
A long time, okay?
Gosh, who schedules you for all these terrible football games?
Ian.
He's gonna blame it all him.
Yep, gonna blame it on Ian. So this was an amazing game, and the final score should have been 50-47, but blocked kick, return for a touchdown. makes it 56-47. So it looks a little bit less close than it actually was. Justin, this game had everything. It had comebacks by both teams who seemed to be kind of having the momentum completely swept away from them, and then the other team would come back and just throw a haymaker and get back into it and then go up by 2 possessions and then drop a couple possessions. It was ridiculous. And then it almost had one of the most improbable comebacks I've seen with an onside kick recovery by the Bulldogs, and they drive down and score, and then they get the ball back, and they seemingly are in this similar position yet again to get a score at the end of the game. But there are so many different things that happened in it. First of all, what was your emotional roller coaster watching this football game between the Bulldogs and the Napavine Tigers?
Well, I can tell you with 2 minutes left, or it was around 2 minutes left, maybe even a little under that, Napavine had a 10-point lead.
Yeah, 50-40.
And I was like, okay, well, this game's over. Like, in my mind, I had already kind of resigned that this is not going to happen. The Bulldogs, it's hard to remember exactly the sequence of events because there was an onside kick recovery and then a defensive stop with timeouts after that.
Yeah,
so the Bulldogs got an onside kick and then drove down and scored a touchdown.
McElravy punched it in on a sneak.
Okay. Then they failed at an onside kick, unfortunately, but were able to stop the team who had been running all over them all game. Like, at that point, I was like, okay, well, you put the ball back in Napavine's hands, game's over.
Yeah.
Well, with the aid of a couple of penalty calls as well, or at least one that hurt them really badly, they stopped Napavine from running the ball down their throats like they had all game, and they got the ball back. But there was like less than a minute left, and they had used all their timeouts.
There was 1:19 left, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then,
but they didn't have any timeouts.
Less than 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
So they end up, after I want to say maybe running once or twice, they throw a bomb down the right sideline, which Jaden McElravy, he was a little off and on throughout the game, and he definitely had some throws that weren't perfect.
He threw some dimes. He went through a cold stretch.
Yeah.
And then he threw some more dimes.
And this throw that he hit Jack Holmstrom deep down the right sideline, I don't have the yardage on it, it was probably about 40, 35, something like that. Hit Jack Holmstrom, the sophomore, who had a phenomenal game, down the right sideline. Jack manages to catch the ball, get his feet down inbounds, get knocked out of bounds, and then they were in striking distance. And I was like, okay, they're going to win. Because offensively, it had gone from Montesano during large portions of the game struggling to move the ball, especially on the ground, to over the last couple drives, Napavine had been unable to stop them. Whether it was McElravy running or Isaiah Pierce running, they couldn't stop him. One guy couldn't tackle him. It was the fourth hit that was getting these guys down. And at that point, I was like, okay, you got to run a couple plays. That's a touchdown. You win.
Yep.
They had a play where someone ran the ball, couldn't get out of bounds. They had to line up really quickly, and it was a third down. It would have been a third down play, and instead of being able to line up and run a play, they had to spike the ball.
Yeah.
So for McElravy on that play, I understand that it would have been way better if you could have gotten a playoff. But in that moment, there was such chaos. There was no time to do anything. And if I were him, I understand being in those shoes of, I don't know what to do, and the way I can do the least damage here is to stop the clock and spike the ball.
Absolutely.
So he did.
Yeah.
The only problem is that set up a fourth down.
Yep.
And in my mind, I thought, your kicker's already gone out in this game because Mateo Sanchez went out with what, I don't want to speculate on the severity of a knee injury, but he went out with a knee injury, and it didn't look great.
Yeah.
And they had two backup kickers. One is a sophomore, one is a freshman. So they bring this freshman kid out to kick a field goal, and I feel terrible for this kid, for Felix, because he's a very talented kicker, and I've seen him play, and he's good.
Yeah, I had a couple parents telling me before that they've seen him hit 50-yard field goals.
Yeah, but the combination of the fact that the whole play from snap to hold ran a little slower than it should have.
Well, and it's, I mean, just even before that actual play, because he missed an extra point at another time.
Yeah.
the whole process has changed because the holder is used to holding for a left-footed kicker.
Right.
And he's a right-footed kicker.
Exactly.
So all of a sudden, mid-game, the holder's got to completely learn how to do something different.
Yeah. And then that combined with the fact that 2 rushers pretty much came up scot-free off the left side. It was an easy block.
Yep.
Napavine picks up the ball and runs it back the other way for a touchdown. And it was absolutely heartbreaking because you already have resigned. I had resigned to the fact that, okay, we lose. And then this team didn't have the quit in them that I did. So they fought back.
Yep.
And they got back in a position to win. And then they didn't. And
You know-
so it was an emotional roller coaster ride. And I definitely lost my voice that night.
Understandable. Because that game was the game version of the Mariners season. You had resigned that they were going to lose.
Yeah, I give up easy.
And then all of a sudden they fight back and make you care again.
Yeah.
And then they lost.
Yeah.
But I got to say, the performances in this game were pretty impressive. I mean, Isaiah Pierce ran for 22 times for 142 yards and 3 touchdowns.
I would describe his performance as heroic. Because at what point, Daniel, in the game, late third quarter, did his legs start cramping to the point where between plays he was falling over? And there was actually one play on defense that he cramped in the middle of being blocked and literally just fell to the ground and got pancaked to the ground.
Yeah.
Yet he still came out every single play and played.
He never came off the field.
They tried to pull him out of the game, and he said no.
Yeah.
He waved off the guy that was coming in for him.
Get the man some electrolytes.
Yeah.
Because
Coconut water. He needs to start drinking coconut water.
I have been
Coconut
told by a player on the team that Isaiah, he just has an issue with cramps.
Weird.
He hydrates like a fiend all the time.
But is he
And
just drinking water?
I don't know. The football players
Because-
carry around jugs of fluids with them at school all
Yeah.
the time. So
well,
Because he needs salts.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I remember him lining up in the running back position next to McElravy, and then like right before all the linemen got set, Isaiah like flinched down and held his leg,
Yeah.
and then stood back up just in time for the ball to get snapped, and then they
Gosh.
handed him the ball for a 14-yard carry.
heroic.
Jeez.
It was impressive. It was impressive. And then McElravy, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 throwing touchdowns. His throwing touchdowns went to Holmstrom and Lovell. And is it Lavelle or Lovell?
It's Lovell.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I've heard it both ways, but I wanted to know which was the right way. So
Yeah.
Lovell had, holy cow. You don't usually see 2 receivers built like them on the same team in on a 1A squad.
Tall, long, fast. They both have great ball skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Both they attack jump balls very well.
Yeah.
Because you see tall people every now and then who are terrible at that.
Right.
And they are tall and they are very good at that. So I was impressed with them. They had great games. And
Since
then
I've
you
been
look at
watching Jackson's third grade, I can tell you he was basically born with that skill.
I think it's something you're born with.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's hard.
I kind of have always thought of tall people as a little bit disadvantaged in that because they don't have to do it on a regular basis. Like tall people don't have to fight at the top of their jump to get to stuff often. Whereas like you're like not short, but like 6'1" guy or 6 foot, those guys are oftentimes a little bit more athletic
See, and to me,
at the top of the jump.
I think. The even more impressive thing, it's a little less about jumping and high pointing the ball, and it's more about being able to track the ball, know where it's going to land, know how to position your body to ward off the defender. There's a lot of things that go into those ball skills that are more than jumping and the actual act of catching, where it's hard when the ball's coming from behind you and you're streaking down the field and it's coming to your outside shoulder to know where the ball is and be able to make a play on it. And that's the part of it that I marvel at. You know, not only the ability to make that catch, but the ability to, like I mentioned, position yourself in a way that shields the defender from stopping you from making the catch. And I think that's probably Jack's greatest strength.
Yeah. And it's just, I think that's almost an innate ability too.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just
Instinct.
How do you teach somebody to do that?
Yeah.
All right, Jack, the ball's in the air and you got this guy draped all over you. How are you just going to subtly move to a spot where you're shielding yourself, falling out of bounds, catching the ball, and having your feet land in bounds?
Sure.
And you're like, how do you even begin to explain that?
Well, I certainly think
Now, I
it's
know that
something you
Montesano
can-
has an excellent receiver on their staff as a coach because Loyals was a used to do ridiculous stuff like that all the time when I played football with him, but I still don't know if you can teach it to somebody.
I think it's something you can get better at with the experience of doing it repeatedly, but also definitely as a natural instinct for sure.
Because that's also hard to repeat to be able to practice.
Yeah.
So you just have to do it and put yourself in that position over and over. Anyway, also ridiculous stats. On his first carry, Justin, I texted you and was like, Lucas Dahl is real fast. The receiver for the Napa Vine Tigers. Holy cow. He had 3
guy
touchdowns.
that you wanted to give the...
No, he's not even the best performer on their team.
Oh, okay.
He had 3 touchdowns. He had 69 yards rushing, 65 yards receiving, and an 85-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. He had a rushing touchdown, a kickoff return touchdown, and a receiving touchdown in the night. But he was outshined by Gavin Parker,
It's outshined.
who had 5 touchdowns on 20 carries for 235 yards.
I don't like talking about
He
this
had
part
3
as much.
rushing. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, an interception return for a touchdown, and a blocked field goal touchdown. It was insane. Like the game that he had, and those 2 kids might not even be the best players on their team, because Keith Olson is a 6'6", 280-pound man beast out there playing 2B football. Did that look like a 2B football team to you at any point?
No.
If I were the people playing Napa Vine in that league, I'd be looking at them the same way that 2A teams look at Tumwater. And be like, okay, 2B, right, sure.
Well, usually with a 2B team, you have, like, there's some deficiency, whether it's size or speed. They were big, they were strong, and they were real fast.
Yeah.
And even, you mentioned Keith Olson, who is committed to USC, apparently is a 3-star.
Transfer to Oregon State, bud. Did you see that game?
Because
He doesn't even have to transfer, does he? He can just decommit.
Yeah,
and
that's what I meant.
Yeah,
I had a question about this because I was like, all right, a 2B player is going to a high-level Division I school. I mean, I was a little skeptical going into the game. I was like, and also because I know someone who knew him when he was younger and was like, hey, will you text me updates about how he's doing? Because I've always known he was a good athlete, but I didn't realize he was this good.
Yeah.
So let me know how it goes. And it was apparent immediately. He's really good. And it's not just, like you mentioned, 6'6", 285 pounds. He can move. He is quick. He's fast. He was getting off blocks and getting to the second level almost at will. He was dominating anyone who was in front of him. I mean, it was pretty crazy to watch that kid operate. And in the second half, they didn't shy away from just running to his side over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. I think there was a couple times, though, where I saw, because the matchup didn't happen too often when he was on offense, because he plays tackle, and Kenny Coonrad plays defensive tackle, so they weren't really lined up against each other too often, although when they were just running behind him over and over and over again, at one point they moved Kenny to defensive end to see, can this help at some point?
Well, they actually had a plan to do that before the game, and they did a couple times in the first quarter as well.
Gotcha.
Kenny would just pop out there. But even Kenny's 319-pound frame, while he could match up with him strength for strength, it wasn't the dominant Kenny that we're used to seeing.
Well, exactly. Yeah, no, it was a good matchup.
Yeah.
Though. There was, like, I'm not going to say that Kenny was just blown off the ball. Like, there was multiple times where I didn't even watch the ball. My eyes just gravitated to these 2 massive humans in the middle of the line of scrimmage. And I would see them battling, and then it was really cool because I'd say save some coaches getting upset and a couple different times, mostly on the Napa Vine side, and save for about 2 minutes after a bizarre call that cost Monty the ball on an onside kick.
You want to talk about that?
Well, we can, because that was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But besides that, I am not sure I've seen a more competitive game be played with more sportsmanship on both sides. Like, and it started in my mind with Coonrad and Olsen. Like, almost after every play that they went up against each other, they were shaking hands, like giving each other a pat on the back. Like, I was impressed. It was like they were both like, game recognized game here. I saw Jack Holmstrom catch his touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone. And as he's running to celebrate, the other team's quarterback / safety is like reaching over, giving him a high five. Like I could not watch the game without seeing that over and over and over and over again between both teams, like picking each other up, saying good job, even when it was touchdowns. It was almost like it was like they were having so much fun playing in a competitive game for once.
I didn't notice any of that.
Oh, what happens when a Monty parent watches a Monty loss? All they see is the other team must be evil, dang it.
So here's the other thing.
Also the refs.
It was a fun game. It was a really fun game. And the refs, that one play was bizarre. One play, and I heard an explanation. Mm-hmm. Somebody said that the refs did not see the ball hit that player's hands. They thought it was just on the ground.
What?
That's what I have heard.
Can you explain what happened for somebody that didn't see
So it was a little pooch kick, tiny pooch kick of onside kick distance. So about 10 yards down the field, but it was not bounced. So that means you're allowed to call a fair catch. Any kick in the air, you can call a fair catch. So the front line kid,
Spencer Coleman.
Spencer Coleman?
90% sure.
Oh, I thought it was Cam Taylor. I thought it was number 50.
No, I think it was 51.
Okay. Either way.
Yeah.
Big old fair catch signal. Like not one of those like, hello, like a big old circle motion with his hand for a fair catch.
Because
like,
he's the front line on
woo!
kickoff.
Yeah, he was like, I don't want any of this. And then as he's catching it, he gets drilled. The ball pops on the ground, and Napavine ends up recovering it. So, huge turn of events.
So they did not award him the fair catch.
No, and they did not call a flag on it.
And
they just gave the ball to Napavine.
Of all the times that I've seen Montesano head coach Terry Jensen get upset, I've never seen him so angry. Because
I've seen him throw things.
Yeah, usually that's for show. This was like foaming at the mouth, legitimate anger.
So hang on though, because if he called a fair catch and he got blown up, wouldn't that be a penalty even if he didn't ever touch the ball?
Yes.
No, they're saying
they
didn't see. They're saying they didn't see. That's the thing, Andrew. It doesn't make sense.
Which is shocking.
I'm just pointing out that explanation would still.
They didn't see him touch the ball. They saw the ball go up. They saw the ball on the ground. That's the explanation. They missed the whole fair catch and catching, getting hit motion. They missed all of that.
There was a guy.
Okay, so they also didn't see the fair catch then.
No.
Like, they didn't acknowledge ever that, like, well, yeah, but he didn't. Okay, I thought you were saying that they were saying he didn't ever catch it. But even then, you couldn't blow him up.
Exactly.
Here's why that's total bullcrap. There was a guy whose responsibility it was to see that. It was right in front of him.
Like me and you.
Yeah, it was 5 no joke. Because this is the far guy on the outside. That's how far out this pooch kick
Did
came.
he not have his readers
and
on? Was he too close?
Was in line with him. It happened right in front of him. There's no I'm not this season, Daniel, have we gone scorched earth on officials? I understand there's an officiating crisis. Not everything's going to be right. It was an 18-2 discrepancy in penalties in this game. That was the official count that I heard.
Okay. I had it at 17. So
I
it's even
get
worse.
all of it.
Yeah.
I had Montesano parents coming up to me after the game saying there should have been more flags because there was one particular player on the Napavine team who was diving on piles at the end of 60% of the plays, and those should be fouls, and they weren't calling them because they're pocketing the flags because they've thrown 18. So they're not throwing fat flags on everything that they should have thrown. I'm not going to be that guy, but I'm going to tell you that call is inexcusable, and I don't care how many refs you have, that guy needs to be terminated. I'm not joking. That's inexcusable because this is not a fair play, get an advantage call. This is a player safety foul that's in place so somebody doesn't get blown the frick up when they're not ready to be hit because they've signaled a fair catch.
Yeah.
What happens
in
that situation where he hits him high? What if he hits him helmet to helmet and he gives him a concussion and the kid he's fair caught the ball. He has no indication that this is going to happen and you blew it. Yep. You blew it, referee, whoever you are.
You should have blown it.
You should be fired, and I never want to see you reffing a game in high school ever again. Everybody else was fine. I was so mad.
I can't tell.
You were?
I've really calmed down a lot about it, though.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. You know what, Justin? Sadly, you weren't even this upset when we saw It was close. I'm not going to say you weren't close, but you weren't even this upset when we saw Austin Flock bleeding from the head after getting elbowed right in front of official and then run up and down the court 4 times before they stopped play right in front of said official while he's literally bleeding from the head.
My general strategy is to calibrate your anger. So in that situation, you were angry enough for the both of us.
Okay.
So I only had to be a little bit angry.
That checks out.
In this one, you didn't have the level of anger that I needed you to have, so I had to be the one who got mad.
That checks out. It was one of the most bizarre and terribly missed calls I've ever seen. But anyone who says that this game, Monty lost this game because the officials...
No, nobody said that.
Okay, good.
No.
Because Napavine was doing their best, man.
No, nobody's.
That was the other
I didn't
crazy-
hear a single person say that
Good.
the refs cost us the game. I only heard it as an excuse for, well, yeah, the penalty discrepancy was really high, but it could have been worse if they threw every flag.
Gotcha.
So yeah, no, the game Napavine won the game because they're awesome.
Yeah.
They're really good.
They're good enough that they turned the ball over multiple times
Yeah.
and committed 18 penalties and
Yeah.
still won. Like, ridiculous.
But hats off to the Bulldog players and coaches
Yes.
for hanging in there, sticking with it. They played a heck of a tough game.
Yeah,
Never
and-
gave up.
I know
Didn't
one
give up
Hook
as
Wim-
easy as I did.
Yeah, I know one Hoquiam parent's going to be so annoyed that we just spent the whole time talking about.
You know what, Jamie? You want us to talk about your team? Get them back on the field.
They need to get back on the field. Dear Lord, let's get some sports back going in Hoquiam.
Take that, Jamie.
I hope that everything is going.
It's going to be my new catchphrase.
Oh gosh. I hope everything is going healthily in Hoquiam. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
I am
agreed.
missing seeing the Grizzlies in the sports roundups. It's bumming me out so much.
I didn't even notice.
You know what?
Ooh, I got a Kraken hat.
Hey.
You know what the real bummer of it is? We had so much time because you and I were both at that game, being able to talk about the
Yeah.
Montesano game. We don't even really get to spend much time talking about the only one of our major teams here that won their football game this week, and that's Aberdeen.
That's
Go
true.
Cats.
Well, Aberdeen was there. Yes, they were. So was Andrew.
I was. Yeah.
But Andrew has a hard time paying attention because he's like busy doing a job during it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I feel weird talking about I don't know. I feel weird being on the coach.
He doesn't want to say
helping
something
the
he's not
coaching
supposed to
staff
say.
And then, yeah, I don't know.
But I did see that
Andrew, get out of here with this journalistic integrity.
Son-
Like, what are you doing?
I'm no snitch.
Andrew, you're the only one of the three of us who's never been an actual journalist, and you have more journalistic integrity than we do. It's not okay.
Get out of here.
But I did see in the Daily World article, shout out Daily World, they described Jeremy Sawyer as a battering ram. And I was told by someone who was at the game that was an accurate description of what he did, carrying the ball 28 times. He didn't get in the end zone, no tutties, but he did carry the ball 28 times for a bruising 151 yards, which is kind of what really propelled the Aberdeen offense to be able to move the ball and sustain drives. And they were losing early in this game, right? Didn't they?
It was
7-6?
7-6 at the half.
7-6 at half, and they came back in the second half. And
I should point out that it was a defensive shutout. The only touchdown that
Black Hills.
Black Hills, thank you. The only touchdown Black Hills scored was on a pick six.
Andrew's
And
so focused on the video job,
The
I don't
defense
even
played
remember who they played.
really well.
Good.
They do have a really good defense.
Yeah.
And I'm just throwing this out there, I'm knocking on wood. If Aberdeen runs the table, they will be co-league champions again with Tumwater.
That's dope.
That will mostly be sweet for the Tumwater salt.
Yes.
Because
That'd be hilarious.
that would be a miscarriage of justice. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
That'd be a big old loogie in the eye to those T-Birds. Love it. All right, we're going to get to some more ridiculousness after a little break, but first, a word from our sponsors.
At Ole Penn Real Estate, we have solidified our foundation on 4 core values. First, we continuously focus on growing our knowledge in the market and in our practices to bring the highest level of competency to our clients. Second, we provide a high level of integrity, compassion, and kindness in every aspect of our business. Third, we put the human element above business through humor, enthusiasm, and patience. And last but not least, we proactively respond to the needs of our clients. Our mission is to create a personal real estate experience, one person and one home at a time. With OliPen, it's personal.
All right. That is OliPen Real Estate. Wow, I forgot it.
They sponsor. You said
Yes.
sponsor 8 times in the
I
last
know.
segment.
Thank you to our
They
sponsors.
support us.
Yeah,
They support her.
Thank you to our sponsors, OliPen Real Estate and the law office of Jeffrey
Yes.
A. Tomaszewicz. Before we get into mailbag, I have a couple of poll results to share.
Oh, yeah. I almost skipped poll results.
I only have a few. It's not a lot from last week's show. First question: does Russell Wilson walk around like he's hot crap? Which is something I said while I was editing myself.
Yes.
68% of the audience said yes, and we also got a comment on that one from Timmy saying he does, but also he kind of is. So
I
he
like
walks
that.
around like he's hot crap, but
yeah.
he deserves to walk around like he's hot crap.
That checks out.
I dig it.
Next question: have you given up on this Mariners season at least 3 times? Which I said that I had. And, well, guess what? 56% of the audience agrees with me. Yes, they have given up on this Mariners season 3 times.
And that number should be higher because there's a lot of liars out there.
Yeah, well, 4 now because it's actually over. Next question. Will the next few weeks determine whether or not Russell Wilson plays for the Seahawks next year? Which is the conversation that Andrew blindsided Daniel with last week on the show. And Daniel
Completely.
was totally thrown off and didn't know how to respond to it. 64% of the audience said yes. Wow. It does. And this week helps.
Yep.
Pick up a win against a
Yep.
division rival.
And the
true.
offense looked significantly better towards the end of the game, which
And I think what we agreed
Helps.
on between the 3 of us was that it only determines whether or not Russ will be here next year if they lose all 3 games. Like if they became terrible,
Yeah.
then it would
Yeah.
be like Russ is on his way out the door. But if they win 2 out of 3, then we just have to keep waiting and seeing what happens.
Yeah. Although after the first quarter today, I think I was going, I mean, was Russ really wrong? He asked for offensive linemen and stars. They didn't get either of them. And then they ended up doing okay. And I was like, yeah, okay, never mind.
And one last thing before we get into mailbag, I want to remind you all that Mariano Rivera is the most overrated athlete in the history of all sports.
Bing. Okay, that's done.
sorry.
The mailbag.
Yes, the
Send us your
mailbag.
stuff. Send us your stuff in a mailbag.
Ooh.
Did these questions come from people, Andrew, or did you just put
These
in?
questions came from people.
And did we have anything on the live stream today?
No, we don't have any questions on the live stream, but I know for a fact that the person that gave me these questions is watching.
Uh-oh.
I think they just didn't want to put their name to it.
Oh. Is that because one of them is the Godfather? Who I still don't know who this is?
First question.
Okay.
At what age should I allow my child to play tackle football?
This is a big question.
It's a really big
It's
question.
a really big question. I don't have a child that's there yet. My thought has been freshman in high school. That has been kind of what I have thought. But I'm also assuming that my kid is going to be built similarly to me. And so I'm assuming that he will be a skill position player if he wants to play football, if he's an athlete at all. And so in my mind, to play receiver or cornerback, you rarely have to learn how to tackle at all. I mean, do corners even tackle anymore?
So-
Just learn how to play basketball out on the outside. So I don't know. I'm coming in that because that was my experience.
Yeah, you started playing football late in life.
Yeah, I played very late in life, and I never had a big issue. Like, there wasn't something that made me a bad player because I didn't start really early playing football. So I have a really weird view on it, I feel like. But I feel like freshman year is or maybe middle school is probably when I would look at it.
That's where I was going to go. I was going to say that I'm not hating on parents that have their little
No.
tykes. Like I don't think it's that bad.
Absolutely.
But for it, like for my own kids, or if I were giving somebody advice, I would say, unless the kid desperately wants to play, don't feel a need to put him in football until puberty has hit. Like post puberty, once they've got their growth spurt in, they're bigger, they're stronger, awkward.
That would have taken me a long time.
Right. Well, and that's why it's for different kids. But
Yeah.
but like having watched some youth football, there's a lot of games where there's 3 kids there that are just started to shave, and there's another kid over there who's literally waist high to them, kind of thing. And I know they try to alleviate that in general,
Yeah.
but I along with what you were saying, where it's not like baseball or basketball, where if you don't start at a young age learning how to see a pitch or learning how to handle a ball, if you try to start as an early teenager, you're just lost.
Yeah.
Football's not like that. As long as you're interested in the game and you play flag football, play sports,
Play football with
athletic,
your friends.
play football with your friends, you're going to have no problem stepping onto the field as a 13, 14, 15-year-old and being athletic and successful. So I would say generally at post-puberty.
Yeah.
Like let your kid grow up a little bit, get a little bit of strength in the gym, and then let him play football.
I was not allowed to play football until my senior year. My dad.
So your dad was following kind of my advice.
Yeah, he really was. Well, he gave me a caveat every year. He said if I weighed a certain amount, and it was always 10 pounds heavier than what I was at that time. So I think my freshman year, he said, well, if you weighed 135. And I didn't weigh 130. Actually, no, I think at that point, I wasn't allowed to play my freshman year because I was just tiny.
Yeah.
Then I hit a growth spurt in between freshman and sophomore year, and he's like, all right, if you weigh 135, and then the next year is if you weigh 145, and then the next year is if you weigh 150. And actually, my senior year, he just said, you're an adult now, pretty much. You can decide to play if you want. And I was terrified of being a senior on JV, and so I didn't play.
Yeah.
And seeing that every one of my football seasons ended with me on crutches, I think it might have been a good thing. Like, I regret it every now and then because our football team took 5th at state. And that would
What if they would have had a super athletic wide receiver who was like really fast? That would have been pretty
I'm not
great.
sure if I was really fast back then, but
Did you get significantly faster post high school?
I grew into my body a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. But
have
Justin, you've been really quiet, and you're the only one who's had kids go through this.
This is the hard part about this because
I
have to
Andrew and I are theorizing over here, and you've actually done it.
I have to open with the disclaimer that I have offered both of my boys. I have one in junior high and one in high school. If you want to quit football, I'll buy you a set of golf clubs. You want to play a fall sport? You want to do golf?
You're
It's not
bribing
too
them
late.
to not play football?
It's not too late because football is amazing
Peyton,
and it's
I
terrifying.
have a ton of respect for you. Good for
It's
you to resist that bribery. That's
terrifying as a parent to watch your child play football sometimes.
Yeah.
I have, because I've not only had kids in youth football, I've coached youth football, I've been on the sidelines reporting and photographing games at all levels from grade school all the way through high school varsity. And it's really scary. And you're concerned not only about concussions from big hits, but with kids, a lot of times what you're concerned more with is the subconcussive hits. So it's the repetitive motion, the repetitive small hits to the head that can cause issues in the long run. So for that reason, it's really difficult for me to feel like I can give anyone some kind of educated, here's when your kid should play football. I'll say this. It's a double-edged sword either way, because I have one son who played probably 3 years of grade school football and then decided he didn't want to play anymore. And now he's telling me, I'm going into 8th grade next year, Dad, I want to play again. And I'm nervous about it, but our rule in our house has always been, if you keep your grades up, you keep helping around the house, you do everything you're supposed to do, you tell me what extracurriculars you want to do, and I will see if we can make that fit in our lives. That's always been the rule. So I don't force them to do anything. They do what they want to, and only if they have their other responsibilities taken care of. I feel like watching grade school football, I was nervous. The first year, 3rd grade, Peyton played grade school football. I was really nervous about watching him. I don't want to go out there and watch my son get hurt or hit hard or anything. And I realized very quickly there's very little significant contact in 3rd grade football. It's basically glorified patty cake.
Yeah.
So
It's a bunch of little kids trying to run around with their helmets on.
there's a really good group of kids in our high school and junior high now where the parents, like 7th grade is usually the mark, where the parents will be like, you're not playing in grade school. When you hit junior high, then you can play. Because that's kind of like, I feel like that's the generally accepted medical field. Like Andrew was saying, hit puberty and then go play because your body's developed enough, your brain's developed enough, you'll be okay. And the only issue that I've seen is the kids who go into 7th and 8th grade football, having not played when the contact is less significant, have a really hard time knowing how to absorb and deal with contact because they haven't spent the last few years doing it while the contact is insignificant. And when you go to a varsity high school game, you don't feel it the same way when you're in the stands. When you stand on the field and you watch these kids hit the other kids, it is violent. And it's much more violent than you realize until you're in it and you're experiencing it up close. So my fear was always, if my children don't learn how to deal with that contact and absorb that contact early, then they're going to come in and get blindsided by the contact. So I think one way or the other, there's a disadvantage.
Interesting.
That makes sense.
I had
But
not thought of
also-
that angle.
As an adult, I've already admitted, I've tried to bribe my children to play a different sport because it's really difficult. Like I
Different activity.
love football. I think football is a great sport. It's just hard to watch your kids go out there and put themselves in difficult situations physically over and over and over again. And we've been lucky so far, no major injuries except for Peyton's concussion is it's the only big thing that's happened.
Yeah.
So catch 22. My kids played football in grade school, but I completely understand and support parents that want to wait and throw their kids in late because I think there's advantages and disadvantages to doing it both ways.
And I think something that maybe because I said I was able to play later in life effectively without playing before, I did have a year of rugby in between.
That helped me also.
So
with
that helped me with the whole contact and absorption and stuff.
learning how to get
Oh, and the right way to
low,
tackle. I should
or
have
what you're
mentioned.
supposed to do to get low.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned the right way to tackle as well because now they used to teach head across tackling, and for years now, I mean, ever since I think when Peyton was in 5th grade, so that would have been like, boy, I'm bad at math. 5 years ago, 6 years
Radio
ago,
math.
something like that. We started like across the nation. They started teaching youth football the way that the Seahawks were tackling.
Yeah.
Where you get your head out of the play and you get your head. You're not putting your head in harm's way.
Yeah.
So learning the right way to tackle and the right way to deal with contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was something that Andrew and I learned well, Andrew, I don't know. Andrew's one of those people who always has an innate ability to tackle because even when we'd play weird sports where we'd be tackling each other, him and his brother would be really good at it. But for me,
Sometimes you just play tackle.
We're built a little
Let's just
lower.
tackle each other.
yeah.
That's the best game, dude.
But
I know
It
your
was.
brother used
It
to.
was when I was a kid.
Your brother used to just tackle people in flag football.
That's true. In rugby, though, I really had to learn
Yeah.
how to tackle, and I thought that was a cool education to have because I was learning to tackle without pads, and so of course you don't want your head in the way. But anyway, that's an interesting question.
I have another question. Are we? If we're done with that question,
Yeah. Yep.
that was a good discussion.
That was a really good question.
I have another question from the live chat on YouTube. My wife wants to know what happened to Justin's power ranking of the week. Did I miss it, or did he realize he's always wrong?
Oh. Justin?
I got lazy.
Okay,
All right.
we'll force Justin to do more power rankings in
All
the
right.
future.
Yes, we will. There's another question. I can only assume this is from The Godfather, but maybe I'm wrong. It says, if there was an Ole Penn athlete of the week when The Godfather played, how many times would he have won?
Daniel, what's your answer?
Well, let's see. When was...
For the record, he did not play for Montesano.
Okay, that's good to know.
Well, apparently none, because we only give Ole Penn Real Estate Athletes of the Week to Montesano players.
Well,
That's kind of where I was going with that.
I don't know what year did the Godfather movie come out? I don't know.
So do we even
that's
know
the
if
Godfather,
Marlon
so-
Brando played sports?
Yeah, did Marlon Brando play football? I don't know.
I don't feel like the Godfather would ever be allowed to lose.
I went back and looked at the box scores from when The Godfather played in high school.
What?
The correct answer to this is 45. The Godfather would have won 45 Ole Penn Real Estate Athlete of the Week awards.
Wow. That is impressive.
Yeah.
If you could actually
you for doing
find
the
the box
research on
scores
that.
from when The Godfather played, then I would be really interested. But we both know that everything's been deleted.
No,
so.
I dug through the actual physical Daily World paper
You
archives.
went to the library and used that really cool machine where
Yeah.
you can like flip through.
I would bet that the Godfather
can't
could
remember what
provide
those
us
are
with
called.
some of his high school stats.
The Godfather has told me some of his high school stats. He would have definitely won at least one. I can tell you
But
that.
were they better than Freeman's stats? Because I'd watch that guy's highlight video any day.
Sometimes I still do.
I might go do that right now.
Shout out Ryan Freeman.
Yeah.
Silky smooth.
Oh, just beautiful basketball, but also his football highlight. Okay, anyway, I digress. Anything else?
No.
Do we have anything else on the live stream?
I don't know. We don't have anything else.
Okay.
Does anyone appreciate the ASMR that I'm doing right now?
No.
Nope, nobody appreciates it.
Scratching my beard.
Nope. All right. So for my co-host Justin, did the end zone even feel it?
And my co-host Daniel, I'm getting butt crushed, Hargrove.
And our producer Andrew, is that a real stat? Gross. Oh, you've been listening to the scrimmage.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
Goodbye.
Andrew's got a good shirt for that, by the way.